You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Holt.
Hey, Matt.
Andrew, what's up, brother?
Back in studio, man.
We are.
Cutting out these shoe-in shows like it's going out of style.
We are knocking them, setting them up and knocking them down.
That's right. We have so many fascinating people that have been coming on and talking to us about different segments of the industry, retail changes, compliance issues, sourcing stuff, sustainability, all those sorts of things. And what's so wonderful about the footwear industry is people are so willing to share.
Very much so.
So willing to talk about their experiences and backgrounds. One, to help people think a little bit differently, but two, sometimes to avoid those pitfalls.
That's right.
That occur.
And they tolerate us, which is a big step in the right direction.
Suckers. Coming on today is Caroline de Baere, who is a footwear industry expert. She's also co-founder of Bendy Shoes, and she brings a whole different, unique experience, having worked in the footwear industry for many, many years. So in one instance, she is actually teaching design at a school in California.
Right.
She's also helping stand up a new brand.
Nice.
And she works on footwear IP issues related to construction and design.
Brilliant.
Infringements and things like
Love
that.
it.
So, Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So right off the bat, we always ask people who've worked in this industry and in different brands, and of course now you're working on different topics and issues, just to share their shoe story. How did you get into the footwear industry? What's been kind of your journey as you've made it to your current path?
Okay. I started out in the footwear industry in the late 80s, and in San Francisco, there were only a few companies that were really doing fashion, and I got my first job at Esprit and worked in footwear production and then transferred into footwear design while I was there and stayed at Esprit for about 7 years. It was, up and coming, perfect place for somebody in their 20s to be working. And then went to work as director of product development at LA Gear in Los Angeles for a few years. You might be familiar with them. That was kind of mid-90s. And then I came back to the Bay Area and started working as the director of product development at Ariat. And at the time, they were still kind of a startup, and it was really fun, developing their first product spec sheets, their first tracking, just really getting that going. They didn't have spec sheets when I arrived, right? And I thought, we need this. And there we had all freelance designers. And so I kind of got a taste of what that was all about, and I got to manage, 4 to 5 freelance designers during the 5-6 years I was at Ariat. And in January of 2000, said, well, I'm going to be one of those independents myself, and jumped off the boat at Ariat, which I loved, and continued to freelance for them for about 8 years. And Birkenstock was my first client. And at the time, Birkenstock was a distributor of footwear in the U.S. And they weren't really making and designing their own products specific to the U.S. market. And so I was able to work with them for about 4 years, helping with all of that, which was really a wonderful opportunity. And I've worked for a number of different brands, Teva, UGG, Red Wing, Keen, with Birkenstock, with Ariat, and a number of others, some children's footwear brands, PD Ped, Umi, Olivia Luca, on a consulting basis. And It's been all, product merchandising, product design, development, trend research, and even in some cases managing and helping with the sales team. So it's been quite a big career as far as that goes. And then around 5-6 years ago, I was approached about doing some work with intellectual property. So as a footwear expert on patent and litigation cases. And that has been really exciting, doing report writing on patent infringement and trademark, trade dress infringement.
Yeah,
and
how does that work?
Testifying.
Yeah, how does that work?
It's crazy.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how that works.
How that works. So, you get approached by the attorneys, end up working with the attorneys, not so much the brands, but figuring out and opining, it's called, on whether a product infringes or doesn't. Somebody say, one of the cases I worked on was UGG versus Bear Paw, and they accused Bear Paw of having infringed on their patents. And so, you write a report just saying, do you believe that they infringed or didn't? Are the patents valid or the patents not valid? And, just kind of get into the nitty gritty of it. It's understanding what the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO, is doing, and just learning all of that language around it. And, to me, it's after, over 30 years in footwear, it's helping maintain the integrity of what footwear design is all about. And I feel that I'm supporting that with the knowledge I have in footwear and, just providing my expertise there and maintaining integrity in this industry that I love. So it's all about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an important part of it, Carolyn, because one of the things that we do on a monthly basis is we pull out the patent and trademark filings for footwear every single month. And there are dozens and dozens of them. And a lot of them are Nike or athletic brand driven. But I think it's really difficult. And I'm not taking sides because we all know these are our members suing our other members in these cases. But
everybody.
But it is difficult to navigate the landscape as to what's in, what has a patent and trademark filing on it, what doesn't. And to read that patent and try to, or that trademark and try and understand if you're violating in some way. And sometimes these designers and these developers and product developer folks they're not trained to navigate it effectively. And so, and then sometimes there are cases where there's just outright theft and we all know it and they're trying to latch onto a trend that's hot. So sometimes you're in the hot seat, right?
Right. No, it puts me in the hot seat for sure, trying to figure that out. And the one thing that we really do is, there's a lot of prior art that is noted on the face of the patents. And when you're looking at prior art, you're looking at it and saying, well, was it too close? Was it not too close? And you need to analyze that as an expert and, help the attorneys figure out, what to do with the case and write reports that relate to that. And then in 2 cases, I've even had to testify at federal court at trial on the reports that I've written. Reports can be 5 pages long. I have a report that was over 300 pages long.
What?
Wow.
Yes, I know.
I hope it was full of visuals. I hope it was 5 pages written and 295 of visuals that you put in.
It was visuals and exhibits and everything under the sun, but it was about trade dress, trademark, patent infringement, patent validity, all kinds of things.
That's interesting.
So there were multiple sections for sure.
It makes me just think recently there's been a big case between New Balance and Nike over the basketball player from Toronto. Is it Leonard?
Kawhi Leonard?
Yeah,
yep.
So he claims that he created his own logo. Nike, I guess, is fighting that because now he's with New Balance, I think.
Yeah, New Balance. He signed with New Balance.
But then they show some of the, Nike kind of threw it out, the initial artwork that is kind of not really anywhere near what the logo was when he was working with them. And so all of a sudden you got to figure out, to Carolyn's point, what was the intent? Was it close enough? Or did somebody take his idea and really actually make it come to life?
Right.
So those kind of things.
Well, it's tricky because, it has changed. There used to be, was it the first person to file the patent who it belonged to, or was it the first person to market, right? So there's a difference between whether you're the first to file, whether you're the first to market. And there's a difference there, right? The product might already be out in the market, but what if you haven't filed a patent on it yet?
Yeah.
Or what if you file your patent before it ever goes to market? So there are a lot of things to really look at when you're opining on this, and being, a footwear expert and having been on, multiple cases at this point and written multiple reports, it gets more and more interesting. And I feel like I continue to learn every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's so complex. I'm glad you brought this up because it's like open up Pandora's box for us right now. Because under federal law, one of our concerns is the trade dress side, and what we're seeing on the counterfeit side is counterfeiters are importing in product. Let's just take a Nike Vapor Max as a hot shoe. They're importing the Vapor Max without the swoosh. They're applying the swoosh in somewhere in a warehouse in Brooklyn or somewhere in the U.S. And under federal law, Customs and Border Protection cannot seize that product, even though it's clearly a violation. It's clearly ripping off the silhouette and the colorway of the Vapor Max. And so we are trying to figure out how do we create authorization for Customs to seize that product, because we all know you're not bringing in generic Vapor Maxes and selling them because you're trying to hit a hot trend, but at the same time the law isn't as clear as it should be.
Right. Well, and with trade dress, it's tricky because you have to prove multiple things, right, in order to prove that you have trade dress. And in a case, my understanding is that the burden of proof for trade dress is on the plaintiff, right? It's not for the defendant to defend trade dress. It's for the plaintiff to prove that they own it and that they have it, right?
Yeah.
So and then with trade dress for, some of you all out there, if you see a product from a distance, you don't have to know who the brand is. You just have to know, oh, it's that brand. Oh, I've seen that before. Oh, I know them. But you don't have to know the name.
Right.
Somebody doesn't have to know that it's Nike or New Balance. They just know that big N is on the side, right? There's that case between Nautica and New Balance right now that was filed recently, and they both have N's on the side. So you don't have to know that the name is New Balance, but you know that it comes from one source. And what's that source identifier?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be their logo. It can be, just the same color outsole used over and over again, but you don't have to know who the brand is. You just have to know it comes from one source. So that's really kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it brings back the recent in the last few years, Nike defending the Converse All-Star and the toe bump and the banding around it, because so many companies, Walmart was part of the case, and a few others had used the iconic construction of the All-Star, and it's such an old shoe, but Nike asserted its legal rights in protecting certain aspects of the All-Star. And so if it was missing some of those, you're okay, and you can make that generic rubber outsoled shoe with a canvas upper sold at wherever. But if you had the toe bump and the back part and the banding that went all the way around, it looked like an All-Star, Nike was asserting its legal authority in that case, and that might be a good example of something that not even knowing the brand, when you see that type of shoe, know that's a Converse All-Star. Right.
So that it's interesting because teaching footwear design. I'm teaching at CCA, California College of the Arts in San Francisco, and just yesterday, a student was they're drawing shoes and they're doing design, and I'm bringing in this intellectual property concept to these students. And so, one of the students is drawing 3 stripes on the side of one of his designs, and I said, you can't do that. And he said, well, why not? And I said, because when you go and you're going to be designing something in the future and you want to do footwear design, you want to do sneakers, can't do that. And so it ended up spurring a conversation, and I know that Andy was talking to me about, well, how do we prepare the next generation of designers to get out there? And I believe that's part of it. It's bringing in someone like, myself with personal industry experience to say, what makes it authentic? What makes it original? What's innovation? You're not doing a 3 stripe on the side. You're not, doing, someone else wanted to use the Gucci, little buckle. And I said, no, do your own. So it's just fascinating to me how much that we as, industry people can bring to the next generation.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about that too, because how do we skill up these folks that want to be in footwear, and don't have really the understanding of the construction issues, don't really have the understanding of the IP issues. I think the real challenge for a lot of brands out there is they're getting someone like from the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, and it's really colorful, cool designs, but how the hell are we going to execute this? How are we actually going to make this a reality? And did you actually think about the materials that went into this? And did you think about, all these things? So what are you seeing in terms of skill gaps from your vantage point, being an expert and having actually done the job?
Right.
And then how are schools trying to address this?
Well, I think that, one of the things that has come up, with the faculty is getting industry people to come in and do guest lectures or projects. I know that at, CCA, where I'm now on faculty, I had gone in and done a few guest lectures and critiques myself. But now what I'm doing is I'm bringing in, Joanne Stetson, who's a leather industry, leather expert who I know a lot of people are familiar with. I'm bringing in a sneaker culture person. I'm bringing in 2 footwear designers and bringing in a color and textile expert. And these people are going to come into the class and talk about what they do in the industry. And, I've spoken to people who were in design school 10, 20, 30 years ago, and that never happened. You didn't have real industry people coming in and speaking about their experiences. I've selected people that all have, 15, 20, 30 years of experience to come in and speak. And the students are thrilled. They can't wait. We have the first one coming in next week. And so I think that's really important. I think even hiring someone like myself who's been out in the industry for, 30 years or so to bring in that level of experience. And another thing I'm doing is, sure, they can do their little pencil sketches that are so amazing. They can do their drawings, but now I'm having them do it to scale. The final project has to be to scale. It has to be something that you could make a paper pattern from. And that is something that I think is important as well. You have to be able to follow the shape of the last, and that to me is really important. And so what I'm teaching them to do is create their templates and go from those templates and draw to the shape of the last, right? It's the foundation of footwear. And they're learning to do that from the beginning, from this first project this week. And I think that's going to be really critical because for the next project, they're going to have to go and actually make physical shoes themselves.
Yeah, well, that brings to mind something, Carolyn, that I want to ask you about, and that is you listed a litany of brands that you've worked with over your career: LA Gear, Ariat, Birkenstock, Keen, just to name a few. Each of those, we know each of those companies actually pretty well. They all have their own culture, their own corporate culture, their own aesthetic. They have all their own, how kind of critique each of them along the way and how that made you the better educator that you are now, because you've been able to kind of navigate through these different, not all shoe companies are created equally, and they're all kind of different. And so how have you been able to adapt to all those differences?
So what I have found to be the most critical thing is to go to the factory, go to the suppliers, go to a materials show. Actually, rather than sitting in an office on your own, and sometimes even virtually, people are having so many Zoom calls and conference calls. People aren't traveling as much to the actual factory to see the patterns being made, to see different products coming to life. And, you're correcting drawings on a computer. I think that's wonderful, but people are not seeing physical samples as much as they used to. So, and that's what we did. There are times when I was in China 3, 4, 5 times a year, or Brazil or Italy. And that's, I think, something that is missing now. I know, and it's something that I had in my career that I'm able to bring to the table. And I think that those relationships and building those relationships is really important. And having done that throughout my career, you leave Ariat, go to work with Birkenstock, or, working with Keen and traveling to factories with them. It's a matter of building relationships, maintaining them over the years, and being able to call on those suppliers when you get to the next company. Being able to call on people that as resources, and just building and continuing to build that network. over the years, I think is something that's really critical too.
Yeah, it is really critical.
What about how I know recently you're starting up a new brand, and we had a call about that, and you're really excited about it, and it made me really excited because you were talking about how you're trying to incorporate sustainability and make the shoe in the U.S. So explain a little bit about that. And there you go. I can tell the passion's coming out there. So
I'm so excited. It's great. Yes. Kind of taking everything I've done for all these years and bringing it into something new. So I co-founded a footwear brand. It's called Fendi by Ashbury with a woman that I knew. Again, resources and networks back at Esprit. Mary Sue Pauley and I met at Esprit back in the late 80s. Exactly, right? Relationships. She came to me and said, I want to do an ethically manufactured brand in the U.S. Are you on board? And I said, absolutely. And we launched a footwear brand in February. The shoes are made at a factory in downtown Los Angeles. So first off, not transportation over vast distances to get here. We can go to LA quickly. We're down there quite often, and the shoes aren't coming from overseas. That reduces carbon emissions immediately. We know the people working in the factory. There's Sophia, there's Maria Elena, there's Alex, there's Victoria. We know them and work with them. And the factory or the tannery that we're working with is green certified, opened water cogeneration plants. They're out of Italy. It's Gruppo Mastrotto. They're a wonderful tannery. Really, really great certifications, and the leather is stocked at the factory in Los Angeles. So how incredible. You can just walk over, get the leather that you want, and again, it just is making lead times shorter. Less material waste is happening there. So that's been amazing. And as far as ethical manufacturing, our insole boards are made in Los Angeles and coming over by truck. They're pre-cut, so there's less packaging. Our boxes are 100% post-consumer cardboard, and they are also recyclable. So it's not just making a box that you can recycle. The actual material to make the box has been recycled. And our shipping carton and our shoebox are one and the same. So we've eliminated more than 40% of the packaging size, which is great. And we've also eliminated, 40% of the packaging in general, which saves again. So lots of things happening that are making it ethical, sustainable, and super comfortable too.
Yeah, it sounds like you've gone about it very methodically about looking at what the carbon footprint is and what the waste is in the footwear industry and trying to work around that, which I think is a great example for other brands to look at of, we talk about sustainability to a certain extent. We're talking about progress. So obviously for folks out there, maybe they can't stand up a brand like you're doing in the US, but they can make little adjustments here or there to reduce waste and energy and water and packaging and any of that stuff to get there. But it seems like you've really taken it the extra mile of trying to think about all those different things that go into production and into the product, being shipped to a consumer. And it's affordable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What's the price point?
It is, yeah. The price point is $149.95. We're going direct to consumer on it. Fendi by Ashbury Styles. I'm thrilled. We also just took it and simplified the pattern. The shoe was unlined, and we went with fewer components. We've got an outsole, an insole board, a footbed, and then the upper is unlined and really simple. So, we're at 6-7 components, whereas your average casual shoe might have, 12 to 14, 16 components. And then an average sneaker with all of those pieces and interface and, ice stay and lining and reinforcements and toe box and, thermoplastic this, lacing can be up to 25 to 30 components. And, in the Fendi, you take it down, simplify it. It only has these 6 to 8 components in there, and that again reduces so much waste. It makes things so much more efficient, and you're not also getting materials flown in from all over the world. Just the leather right there.
So that was my next question.
Yeah.
I see online that it's Italian leather, so you're importing in the leather. I assume in rolls. Is there any other componentry that is imported, or is there everything else locally sourced or domestically sourced?
So right now, the outsole is coming from China. And what we're looking at, though, and in the process of, which is very exciting, is we have designed a new outsole, and we are in the process of sourcing it elsewhere, and it is going to be completely sustainable. Can't tell what it is yet until we launch. And get our patent, of course, right?
Right, of course.
There you go.
Don't forget that.
Got to work on that intellectual property, especially me.
Yeah.
And, just get that in there. So we'll be launching that sometime next year, and it will be a completely, sustainable outsole, which we're super excited about. So
That's very exciting.
Well, yeah, and one other thing we're doing, I just want to plug this, is we're using reclaimed and dead stock leather for a couple of different products too. The snake skin that we just launched is from a warehouse, found it in downtown LA. It was rejected by another brand, but looked amazing. And so it's reclaimed leather that we're saving from landfill, and we plan to do that where and when we can as well. Just taking sustainability one step further.
Yeah, that is awesome, because as we say now in the industry, sustainability is definitely in fashion, and that's my terrible segue to bring in Jasmine, who's going to walk us through the world-famous fashion, footwear, and focus segment. Jasmine.
So I've been watching a lot of runway shows recently, and I've seen this before, but now I've saw more and more of it recently, and that's just like add-ons to shoes. I was watching a footwear brand called Zimmerin, who has like a shark tooth almost looking add-on to their shoe. I've seen some with like chain links and even like little ribbons and just extra add-ons to shoes. So I don't know how you feel about that. Do you like your shoes more simple? Do you like a little customization with some add-on pieces? How do you feel about that?
You're asking me, or you're
yes,
asking
sorry.
I feel like it just starts to get a little bit messy and a little bit too busy when you're doing a lot of add-ons. I think something simple and, I think that more modern and clean is
kind of trendy right now.
Sustainability.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the road to sustainability is keeping it clean, keeping it simple. I think something tasteful, great, but excessive, no, not for me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think for the consumer. I don't think for the consumer either.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a super trend, but like you said, anything that's minimalistic is like super popular right now, and it doesn't seem like the trend is going to go out. I mean, you even see that in like home decor, so it's all over where people are just looking for something just like classic that you kind of wear with everything, but I just thought it was interesting that I was seeing it so much.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm thinking about the brand Greats that Steve Madden just bought, which is Italian shoes that are super basic. They're sneakers and they're high-end Italian, but they cut out the middleman. And if Madden wouldn't have bought them if simple and iconic and classic weren't in style, right? And I think that speaks to what you're saying.
I think we're always looking for an open concept sneaker. Am I right? HGTV's taught us that.
That's called a flip-flop.
With a nice backsplash.
Right.
Carolyn, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for the work you're doing to help educate the next generation of students. I'm confident at your direction we'll find some new designers that when they come in will be well skilled up to where the brands don't have to spend quite as much time getting them caught up to speed on the realities of designing and making shoes, right?
Right. Well, I already have some recommendations. There are stellar students, and if any of you brands out there are looking for some amazing designers, a couple of them are graduating in the next semester, and I'm ready to recommend them.
There you go. So look you up.
There you go.
Look you up on LinkedIn. I mean, this is a tight labor market, so there you go. People take advantage. Excellent. Folks, this is Shoe and Show. We're covering. Yeah, of course. This is the Shoe and Show covering the ins and outs of all things footwear. We are the Footwear Industry's podcast. If you have ideas on shows you want to hear or topics you want to hear about, if you have ideas for guests that you would like us to bring on, drop us a line at shoeandshow.com. Of course, we're on iTunes. Of course, we're on Spotify. If there's a platform that's a podcast ready, we're there too. Make sure you subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts so that you can get our beautiful voices into your ears every Monday, new episodes. And until the next time, we thank you for listening, and Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.